students. In this video, we are going over the final sections of your research paper. The first section that we'll go over is called the Summary of Findings. You can see this part on your research paper guidelines that we've been using here. I'm just continuing on with the same guidelines we used in the other videos. But our summary of findings, this is where we need to include two different parts. The first thing, you'll discuss what your findings mean. And by findings, we mean what you found through your research. So through your research, something's going to emerge that's going to be obvious how to handle this situation. So you'll discuss what that means. And you'll also discuss if there's enough evidence out there to be explored in your problem section to make a good decision about your topic. Maybe that's something that you found out that you researched and researched and researched, but you still don't think that there's enough to make a decision about your topic. If that's the case, you would include it here in this section. After you discuss what your findings are, you need to tell me what the solution to your problem is. What's the answer to that question that we came up with in the introduction section? What's the solution? This is where we infer. We have all of this information, this data, evidence, facts, everything that we found in the problem section. Now it's time to take all of that and make an inference. Be sure to support your conclusion, or your solution, by connecting it back to your problem section and all of the facts and the research there. So it shouldn't be, this is the solution because I think it's the right way to do things. It should be, this is the solution based on all of the evidence and facts that I found through my research. That way that you would be able to back up a decision or a solution in the real world by backing it up with good evidence and facts. This is the same situation. It's not just something that you came up with on a whim. You actually connect it back to all that research in the problem section. The second part, you need to make sure that you address any consequences and implications that can arise from the conclusion that you make. So whatever your solution is, whatever your answer to that question or the problem is, you need to address what consequences may occur. So good, bad, neutral, whatever. This is where you address all the implications that could happen because of your solution. So let's say that you were, for example, researching abortion in the United States, and your question was, should the federal government make abortion legal throughout the entire United States? That's what you're doing all of your research on. And here in the summary of findings is where you actually get to present your solution to that problem. So let's say after all the research you conclude that the federal government should make abortion illegal in the entire United States. There will be implications for that. I know in the examples that we used when we were talking about the elements of thought and we talked about implications, there would be implications if we made abortion illegal. There would be more back alley abortions, which could lead to more deaths because of the poor conditions that those back alley abortions take place in. There could be infections and sickness, and instead of having a doctor do it at the doctor's office. Good consequences that could come from that. I mean, the children that wouldn't have had a chance at life otherwise would have a chance at life. So there are good and bad consequences if we did make that decision in our paper. That's just an example. So this is something that you would need to include in your paper. Whatever you decide is the solution, address all of the consequences, good, bad, and neutral, based on whatever your solution is. And then the final section, we're actually going to combine these two things. The next section will be called recommendations/conclusion. So your recommendations is pretty much where do we go from here? What do we do about this problem in the future? So this is where you make recommendations for the future. It could be that you think that there should be more research done on this topic. It could be that you have an idea for someone else to do a study on for this problem that you have researched. Maybe there are gaps in the research that you saw that should be addressed, and more researchers should cover that gap. Always link your recommendations back to the problem section again, all the research, but pretty much your recommendations is just what we should do going forward from this point. What should the future look like for this problem? And then conclusion. You should know what that is from writing your very first research paper. You just summarize everything that you just said. Okay, as far as the formatting goes, I go back to our little sample here. For your summary of findings, you center that heading in its entitle case, so we capitalize the S and the F in findings, and the rest of it is lowercase. And we bold that and we center it, and then we double space down, and we continue with our paragraphs that are double spaced and indented 1/2 inch. Excuse me. Make sure that if you need to use any in-text citations, you do so. And you probably will have some in this section, because we know that everything that we do in the summary of findings, we have to tie it back to our problem section in some way. And then we have our recommendations and conclusion. It's formatted the same way. You center it, bold it, and put it in title case. And you have the double spaced paragraphs that are indented 1/2 inch. You have in-text citations here. Yours might be longer than this. That's fine. This is just a way to let you know how to center and bold the headings on everything.